What do you mean I'm not in the will? After everything I did for him, this is how he repays me.
In accordance with a codicil dated June 12th, the lawyer read, his voice devoid of warmth. The controlling interest in Vincent Ashcroft's estate, including the majority stake in Ashcroft Holdings, is bequeathed to Elise Vance. The heir vanished. Elise Vance. The name echoed, meaningless and terrifying. I was Jason Ashcroft, the prodigal son in all but DNA, Vincent's right hand for 15 years. He called me his heir. He promised me the throne. All I saw were the triumphant, pitying glances from my so-called family across the polished mahogany table. This wasn't a will. It was a weapon detonated posthumously. Every lesson he taught me, every midnight strategy session, every time he said, "This will all be yours." Was it just a performance? Who is Elise Vance? And what did Vincent know about me that I never knew about myself? The hunt for the truth begins now. If you're new here, hit the subscribe button and comment where you're watching from. The lawyer cleared his throat, and suddenly the room felt smaller. I sat there in tailored silk, Zegna to be precise, the wool silk blend a whisper against my skin. Confident, untouchable. The ash-gray fabric was armor I'd earned. To my right, the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Ashcroft Building's penthouse boardroom offered a dizzying, proprietary view of Central Park, a verdant slab I was about to own. I had built half the empire beside him. I'd sweated in Singaporean humidity to close the shipping deal. I'd stared down hedge fund vultures during the 8 crisis. I'd spent Christmas Eves with spreadsheets instead of family, because this was my family. Vincent Ashcroft's sharp, approving nod was my father's love. The scent of his Cuban cigars and old money was my inheritance. Then the lawyer, old man Thorne with his watery eyes and eternal 3-piece suit, read one sentence that shattered everything I believed about loyalty, blood, and who truly owned the life I was living. In accordance with a codicil dated June 12th, Thorne's voice was a dry leaf scraping on concrete. The controlling interest in Vincent Ashcroft's estate, including the 51% stake in Ashcroft Holdings, the Hamptons compound, the art collection, and the majority voting rights, is bequeathed to Elise Vance. The air didn't just leave the room, it was vacuum-sealed out. Elise Vance. The name bounced around the polished mahogany, a stray, nonsensical bullet. A collective, sharp intake of breath from the vultures, my Aunt Celia, her diamond-studded hand flying to her throat in practiced theatrical shock. My Uncle Richard, his jowly face momentarily slack before a calculating gleam lit his piggy eyes. Their 2 entitled brats, trying and failing to hide their smirks. I, Jason Ashcroft, the prodigal son in all but DNA, Vincent's shadow and sword for 15 years, felt the fine silk of my suit begin to prickle like sackcloth. He called me his heir. On this very terrace, glass of Macallan in hand, he'd gripped my shoulder, the city sprawling at our feet. "All this, Jason, it's yours to shepherd. You have the gut for it." Every lesson, every midnight strategy session in his library, every time he'd said, "This will all be yours," was it just a performance? A lie to keep the engine of my ambition stoked. Who the hell was Elise Vance? I became aware of a low, rhythmic sound. It was the tap of my own Cartier Santos against the table. I forced my hand to stillness. Thorne was still talking, the legal drone cutting through the fog. Mr. Jason Ashcroft shall receive, in perpetuity, the deed to his current residence at 432 Park Avenue, Penthouse 82, and a one-time disbursement from a dedicated trust in the sum of $10 million, free of clear encumbrance. All other assets, as noted, are contingent upon the beneficiary, Elise Vance, coming forward to claim her inheritance within a period of 90 days from this reading. 10 million. A tip for a life spent. The penthouse was just a gilded cage he'd already been letting me live in. The numbers were so insultingly small they burned. My vision tunneled. The Mattis on the far wall, the one Vincent and I had chosen together at auction in Geneva, seemed to leer at me. The baccarat chandelier, a cascade of frozen tears, hung too low. I stood up, the chair scraping back with a shriek. Every eye was on me. Richard's smirk was now full, open. "A clarification, Thorne," I said, my voice eerily calm, the voice I used before firing someone. "Who is Elise Vance? What is her relation to Vincent?" Thorne adjusted his glasses, refusing to meet my eye. "The document does not specify relation, Jason. It simply names her as the primary beneficiary of the bulk of the estate. "This is an outrage," Aunt Celia shrilled, though her outrage felt directed at the disruption of the natural order, not at the injustice to me. Some stranger, after all Jason did, after everything we, his family, have endured." I ignored her. Family. They tolerated me because Vincent did. I was the street-smart mongrel he'd brought into the mansion, house-trained and put to work. Now the master was dead, and the purebreds were baring their teeth at the help who'd gotten too comfortable. I looked at Thorne. "You have her details, an address, something." "The law firm is the designated executor and point of contact. We will, as per the will, make reasonable efforts to locate Ms. Vance. You will be informed when she comes forward." His tone was final, a door slamming shut. The next hour was a blur of murmured condolences that tasted like salt in a wound, of cold handshakes, of Richard's meaty palm clapping my back with false sympathy. "Chin up, Jason. 10 million's not nothing. You'll land on your feet." The implication was clear. Back on the streets where you belong. When the last of them had slunk out, smelling of opportunity and schadenfreude, I was alone in the silent, cavernous room. The skyline twinkled, indifferent. My kingdom turned to a mockery. Fury, cold and precise, began to replace the shock. This was not a tragedy, it was a hostile takeover, and I had been the sleeping CEO. In the private elevator descending to my office, I thumbed my phone. "Maya, lock it down, now!" Maya, my assistant for a decade, knew my tones. She didn't ask questions. By the time I strode into my corner office, my office, for now, the first moves were in play. My executive access was still active. I initiated a series of coded financial protocols Vincent and I had designed for emergencies, freezing all non-essential capital transfers, requiring dual signatures for any asset movement above $1 million. I couldn't stop the will, but I could make the empire a fortress until I understood the enemy. "What am I looking for, Jason?" Maya asked, her face pale on the monitor. "Everything, Elise Vance. Start deep. Skip the basic web search, it'll be nothing. Dig into Vincent's private financials, the charitable trusts, the offshore shells. Look for any Vance-linked payments, foundations, school tuitions, anything. And pull the security logs for Vincent's private study in the Hamptons for the last 6 months. Who did he see?" As she worked, I walked to my window. My view was a fraction of Vincent's, but it was still a view earned. A memory ambushed me. Vincent, just 3 months ago, frail in his hospital bed at the Lenox Hills suite, machines beeping a soft rhythm. He'd gripped my hand, his own surprisingly strong. The scent of antiseptic had warred with his customary Creed cologne. "You're ready, Jason," he'd wheezed, his eyes sharp, blue, and unclouded by the morphine. "But remember, empires are won in daylight and secured in shadows. Trust the system I built." At the time, I'd thought it was wisdom. Now it felt like a taunt, a system built to exclude me. Maya's voice broke through. "Jason, I found a recurring payment, not from the main corporate accounts, from the A&S Legacy Trust. Annual disbursements, 7 figures for the last 24 years, to a numbered account in the Caymans. The bank of origin for the receiving account is in Zurich. Beneficiary. Not listed, the trust itself is a ghost, but the I cross-referenced with his calendar. The only he ever met privately, repeatedly in the early 90s was a Sophia Vance. Sophia Vance, the name from the will, a mother, a sister. Find her." "I'm trying, there's a death certificate. Sophia Vance, died 23 years ago, single, cause cardiac arrhythmia, survived by one dependent, daughter Elise Vance." The pieces clicked, cold and metallic. A secret family, a hidden daughter. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't just a business rival, this was a blood heir. The one thing I could never be. The bitterness was a poison on my tongue. All my striving, my perfection, could never trump biology. "Where is the daughter now?" I asked, my voice tight. "The money trail from the Cayman's account feeds into a tuition plan for a boarding school, Institut La Rosie in Switzerland, paid in full years ago. After that, it gets fuzzy. But there's a tax document from 2 years ago. A 1099 for contract work issued by the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Payee, Elise Vance, for conservation services. An artist? A conservator? I almost laughed. Vincent Ashcroft, the Lion of Wall Street, had left his empire to a woman who repaired old paintings. The exquisite cruelty of it took my breath away. This was his final masterstroke, a statement that all my corporate warfare, all my leveraged buyouts, were less valuable than knowing how to restore a cracked panel of tempera. Get me her address, everything the Met has on file. Already have it, a studio address, Red Hook, Brooklyn. Brooklyn, of course, not the Upper East Side, not the Village, Red Hook. It was a world away from the gilded corridors I inhabited, a calculated distance. Cancel my afternoon, and get legal on drafting a provisional management power of attorney agreement. Standard terms, but with a clause for seamless transfer of control back to a designated trustee, me, upon her signature. Jason, Maya's voice held a warning. You don't know anything about her. What if she doesn't want to sign? I looked out at the city, my city, the one I'd been promised. Then we make her understand the alternative. A billion-dollar empire isn't a hobby. It's a beast. It will eat a little art conservator alive in a week. I'm offering her a way out with her sanity and a very large bank account intact. She'd be a fool to refuse. The drive to Brooklyn was a descent into a different reality. My black Mercedes S-Class, a silent capsule of leather and privilege, felt conspicuous navigating the potholed streets lined with warehouses and graffiti. The studio was in a converted brick factory, north light flooding through huge, dirty windows. The air smelled of turpentine, linseed oil, and dust, a stark contrast to the lemon-pressed, filtered air of my world. I found her at the back under a strong lamp, bent over a small, cracked painting of a Madonna and child. Elise Vance was younger than I'd expected, maybe 28. She wore a simple, paint-smudged linen shirt and jeans, her hair tied back in a messy but efficient knot. She wasn't beautiful in the polished, surgical way of the women in my circles. Hers was a focused, intelligent attractiveness. She was deep in concentration, a fine-tipped brush in her hand, her movements minute and precise. I watched her for a full minute, the outsider in my $5,000 suit. This was the threat? This quiet, meticulous woman? My fear curdled into a kind of disdain. She was a child playing with dolls while the adults managed the fortune. Ms. Vance. She started, almost dropping the brush. She looked up, eyes wide, green and clear. No recognition, only surprise at the intrusion. Can I help you? My name is Jason Ashcroft. Nothing, just polite, confused blinking. Vincent Ashcroft, I pressed, the name a talisman that should have triggered something, greed, triumph, something. I'm sorry, she said, setting the brush down carefully. Should I know that name? The genuine bafflement in her voice was more destabilizing than any lawsuit. She wasn't playing a game. She truly had no idea. He was my mentor, my father figure. He passed away last week. Her face softened with a polite, distant sympathy. Oh, I'm very sorry for your loss. It was the tone you use with a stranger on a train sharing bad news. His will was read today. I kept my eyes locked on hers. He left the majority of his estate, his entire business empire, to you. The silence that followed was absolute. Her expression cycled through confusion, then a flicker of suspicion, as if I were a scam artist, then a dawning, horrifying comprehension. She paled, gripping the edge of her work table. Me, that's impossible. There must be a mistake. My mother's name was Vance, but we didn't have family like that. Just a small trust from a distant cousin for school. The trust was from Vincent Ashcroft. Your mother, Sophia, knew him. At the mention of her mother's name, her guard went up, solid and defensive. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm stating a fact. He provided for you secretly for your entire life, and now he's given you everything he owned. I couldn't keep the razor's edge of bitterness out of my voice. Congratulations. She stared at me, then let out a short, humorless laugh, looking around her chaotic, paint-splashed studio. You think I want some empire? I restore art, Mr. Ashcroft. I don't run conglomerates. I don't want his money. I have my life here. Her rejection was an insult on top of the injury. My carefully constructed offer died in my throat. You don't have a choice. The lawyers will find you. The press will find you. That, I said, gesturing to her peaceful studio, will be gone. They will pick you apart. My family, his family, will try to destroy you to get that money. Then I'll refuse it, sign it away. It doesn't work like that. If you refuse, it goes into a labyrinth of secondary trusts that will keep it locked in litigation for decades. The company will be carved up by vultures. People will lose jobs. A lifetime of work will vanish. I was simplifying, manipulating, but every word had a kernel of truth. I saw it hit home. She wrapped her arms around herself, suddenly looking very young. Why are you telling me this? Because I can help you. I ran that company with him. I know how it works. I can protect you from them, and I can run the business so it doesn't collapse. You can live your life untouched. All you have to do is claim the inheritance and sign a provisional management agreement, giving me control. Her eyes narrowed. You get what you wanted after all. I get to do the job I was trained for. You get to keep your freedom. It's the only logical solution. She was quiet, looking from me to her Madonna, whose gentle face seemed to frown in judgment. I need to think. I need to understand any of this. You have 90 days, but the wolves don't wait. I pulled a card from my breast pocket, the thick, creamy stock embossed with only my name and a number. When you're ready to be logical, call me. I turned to leave, the scent of oil paint and integrity clinging to me like an accusation. As I reached the door, her voice stopped me, quiet but firm. You said my family. You called them your family, but you're not one of them, are you? You're just like me, someone he placed in a gilded cage. Her words were a needle to the heart. I didn't answer. I walked out into the gritty Brooklyn afternoon, the card still in my hand, her question echoing in the silent, luxurious tomb of my car. She was wrong. I wasn't like her. She had a cage to escape to. This gilded world was all I had, and I would be damned if I'd let anyone, especially a painter from Red Hook, take it from me without a war. The silence in the Merceds was a physical weight. The scent of Red Hook, oil, rust, the brackish East River, still seemed to cling to the fine leather, a stubborn intruder. Elise Vance's words were a corrosive echo. You're just like me, someone he placed in a gilded cage. I crushed the thought, focusing on the tactical problem. She was an unknown variable, emotional, unpredictable. My leverage was time and her inevitable terror when the reality of the Ashcroft world descended. I instructed my driver to take me to the Hamptons compound. The will reading was a declaration of war. I needed to survey the battlefield Vincent had left behind. The journey was a blur of manicured hedges and shingled estates. The Ashcroft compound wasn't the largest on Further Lane, but it was the most perfectly situated, a brutalist masterpiece of glass and steel that hovered above the dunes, defiant against the Atlantic's whims. Vincent had called it his thinking box. Now it was a crime scene, and I was both detective and suspect. I used my key, still valid, a small victory, and let myself into the profound stillness. The housekeeper had been given leave. It was just me and the ghost of the man who had remade me. I went straight to his private study, a room forbidden to all but us. The wall of first editions, the Eames chair, the brutal Henry Moore sculpture by the window. It felt like a shrine. My first search the day after his death had been for practical items, the combination to the floor safe, notes on pending deals. Now I searched for the man. I started with the desk. Neat, logical. Nothing in the drawers but spare Mont-Blanc pens and aged stationery. The safe yielded the expected: passports, bonds, my own adoption paperwork, a formal cold transaction that had always made me flinch. No clues to a secret daughter. Frustration mounted. Then my eyes fell on the Moore sculpture. It was a dense, abstract bronze form, but its base was slightly off-kilter on the Tibetan rug. I'd never noticed. I crouched, gripped the cool metal, and twisted. It was heavier than hell, but it pivoted. Underneath, flush with the floor, was a small, hinged panel of wood. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was the shadows Vincent spoke of. Inside the shallow cavity lay not stocks or deeds, but a simple cedar box. I lifted it out, the scent of old wood and memory filling my nostrils. Inside, resting on velvet, was a stack of letters, tied with a faded blue ribbon. The paper was thick, creamy, the handwriting a passionate, looping script I didn't recognize. My dearest Vincent, the sea here is a different blue than Capri. It holds no music for me now. Every wave tells me I was right, and every wave breaks my heart anew. She has your eyes. I call them my storm clouds, but in her, they are a summer sky. She asks for her father. I tell her he is a beautiful dream we once had. I sat back on my heels, the letter trembling in my hand. The raw, unfiltered love in the words was a universe away from the Vincent I knew. Page after page, a decades-long love story unfolded. Sophia Vance, a conservator he'd met in Italy, the great love of his life. Her refusal to be his secret, her fierce protection of their daughter, Elise. His guilt, his devotion from afar. The last letter was in Vincent's own decisive hand. Sophia, my love. The money is nothing. A pittance for the son you took with you. Protect our Elise, make her brave and good like you. I will watch over her always. One day I will make it right, I swear it. V. The date was a week before Sophia's death. Cardiac arrhythmia. The phrase from the death certificate now felt like a lie. She died of a broken heart, and he'd spent the next 20 years trying to atone. And I was his instrument of atonement. The furious, strategic part of my brain began to piece it together. He hadn't just left her the money. He'd left her me. A seasoned operator to guard his treasure. My entire life's work, reduced to a glorified bodyguard for a woman who didn't want the things she was being guarded for. The cold fury returned, but it was now mixed with a terrible, hollow grief. I had loved a fiction. The father I knew was a careful corporate avatar. The real man had lived and loved and bled in these letters for them. I took photos of a few key pages with my phone, a soldier gathering intelligence. The emotional core was a vulnerability. I couldn't afford it. Back in Manhattan, the corporate siege was underway. My temporary freezes had sparked chaos. Richard had called an emergency board meeting for the next morning. Maya's updates were terse. They're citing fiduciary duty. The uncertainty is causing volatility. They'll move to install Richard as interim CEO, citing the leadership vacuum. Your access codes might be revoked by close of business today. I spent the night in my penthouse, not sleeping, staring at the city's electric grid. I wasn't fighting for a birthright anymore. I was fighting for survival. The 10 million, a fortune to most, was a pittance in this world. It wouldn't cover the annual maintenance on this apartment, the art collection I'd curated, the lifestyle that was my armor. Without the title, the power, I was just a rich man, not a powerful one. And in New York, the former was prey for the latter. The boardroom the next morning was an Arctic landscape. The usual deference was gone. Richard sat at the head of the table, Vincent's chair, his bulk seeming to expand to fill the void. Jason, thank you for joining us. Given the unprecedented and destabilizing circumstances of the succession, the board feels compelled to act to protect shareholder value. I took my usual seat, right of the head. My protocols are protecting shareholder value, Richard, preventing a fire sale before the new beneficiary is even briefed. A beneficiary with, we are told, zero corporate experience, sniffed Alicia Vancek, no relation. A board member whose loyalty was to quarterly dividends. Your locking of assets, while well-intentioned, is itself a destructive act. We need steady, experienced hands. My hands built half the assets on this balance sheet, I said, my voice flat. Under Vincent's direction, Richard countered smoothly. Now we must navigate a new reality. I propose a vote to appoint an interim chief executive officer to stabilize operations until such time as Elise Vance formally claims or refuses her inheritance. I humbly offer myself to serve. The vote was a foregone conclusion. I was outnumbered by people whose seats I'd helped secure. The gavel fell. I was stripped of executive authority, left with an advisory role, a polite nullity. As the meeting broke, Richard leaned close, his breath smelling of expensive coffee and cheaper Triumph. Don't look so grim, Jason. There's still a place for you. Maybe head of a small division, Pacific Rim operations. You always did like Singapore. It was exile, a slow professional death. I nodded, said nothing. The true lesson of luxury was not in having, but in holding. And I had just been disarmed. My phone buzzed as I stood on the sidewalk, the autumn wind sharp, an unknown number, a Brooklyn area code. It's Elise. Her voice was different, strained, older. They found me, the press. Photographers were outside my studio this morning. They knew my name. They were shouting questions about Vincent, about being a secret love child. How did they know? Richard, it had to be. He was flushing her into the open, forcing her to react. I warned you. They want you scared. They want you to make a mistake. I can't work. I can't think. They followed me to the grocery store. A tremor of panic vibrated down the line. You said you could help. What does that help look like exactly? This was the opening. The frightened bird was ready for the cage, but the letters in my pocket felt heavy. I saw Sophia's words, her refusal to be a secret. I saw Vincent's decades of silent penance, and I saw Richard's smug, jowly face. A new plan, cold and clear, crystallized. It looks like a partnership, I said, surprising myself. Not a signing ceremony, a truce, meet me, somewhere they won't look. We met in the one place no one in our social orbit ever went, the main reading room of the New York Public Library. Between the towering ceilings and the silent, focused scholars, we were ghosts. Elise looked exhausted, her green eyes shadowed, but there was a steel in her posture that hadn't been there before. The vulnerability had been burned away by the flash of a paparazzo's bulb. I laid it out, not just the management agreement. I told her about the letters. Her face went ashen as I described her mother's words, Vincent's promise. She didn't cry. She absorbed the blow, internalizing it as a new, fundamental truth about her history. So I was a secret, she said finally, her voice a low whisper in the vast quiet. And now I'm a weapon in a will. You're the key, I corrected. And I believe Vincent's final act wasn't just to give you wealth. It was to expose a rot. Richard moved too fast. He tipped off the press too eagerly. It feels personal. You think he knew about us, about my mother? I think, I said, leaning forward, that we need to find out what he knew and when. If we're going to be partners, we need the full battlefield map. That starts in the one place Vincent felt was truly his, the compound. Will you come? She hesitated, then gave a single, sharp nod. The art conservator was ready to start restoring the truth. The drive back to the Hamptons was tense, silent. Seeing the compound through her eyes was a revelation. She didn't see the architecture or the value. She saw a fortress, a monument to a life that had eclipsed her own. In the study, I showed her the hidden compartment, the letters. This time, she did cry, silent tears tracing paths through the dust of the hidden panel. She held her mother's writing like a holy text. While she grieved, I thought like a CEO. Richard. His jealousy of Vincent was legendary. His financials were always solid, but too solid. While Vincent took wild, brilliant risks, Richard's portfolios showed steady, unerring gains. It was the pattern of a man who knew the dice were loaded. Maya, I said, stepping onto the windy terrace to call. I need a deep dive, not on Vincent, on Richard. Every property, every shell company, every investment from 1990 onward. Look for anomalies. Payments received, not made. Look for anything tied to the name Vance. On it, she said, her voice alight with purpose. Elise joined me outside, the letters clutched to her chest. He loved her, she said, not to me but to the sea. And it destroyed her. This house, all this, it's just the fallout. Before I could answer, my phone chimed. Maya. Her voice was tight, electric. Jason, you need to see this. I found a holding company in the British Virgin Islands, Midas Holdings. It's been receiving annual 7-figure disbursements from Ashcroft Capital for 25 years, flagged as consulting fees. The sole director of record for Midas is a law firm we use, but I dug into the bank transfers. The ultimate beneficiary account, it's Richard's personal Swiss vault. The pieces slammed together with the force of a train. The consulting fees were the same amount as the annual payments to Sophia and Elise. Richard hadn't just known. He'd profited from the secret. He'd been blackmailing his own brother for decades. There's more, Maya whispered. I accessed the old archived security drive from the compound. The exterior cameras from 23 years ago. The system was primitive, but it stored loops. The week before Sophia Vance died, there's a car. A black town car. It visits twice. The license plate is registered to a corporate entity Richard controlled. He hadn't just sent money. He'd shown up. He'd confronted her. The cardiac arrhythmia that took a healthy young woman, had it been brought on by fear, by harassment? I turned to Elise, the Atlantic wind whipping between us. I told her everything. The color drained from her face, leaving a mask of pure, icy rage. The gentle conservator was gone. In her place was Sophia's daughter. "He killed her," she said, the words a statement, not a question. "We can't prove that. Not yet. But we can prove the blackmail. We can prove he exploited Vincent's love for your mother to bleed the company dry for years." She looked past me at the colossal, empty house. "What was your plan? My signature for your power." "It was," I admitted. "Now the plan is different. The plan is justice. And to get it, we need to beat him at his own game. We need to claim the inheritance. Together. And then we burn his world down." For the first time, she looked at me not as an adversary or a tool, but as an ally. She saw the same betrayed fury that burned in her. We were both Vincent's pawns, but now we held the board. "The board meeting is tomorrow," I said. "They expect a scared girl or a greedy opportunist. They expect me to be sulking in exile. They won't expect us." A faint, grim smile touched her lips. It was the most terrifying expression I'd ever seen. "What do I need to wear?"